In 8 years working at Disneyland, I watched the same thing happen every single day. Families spending an average of $200 more than they needed to. Missing perks that were sitting right there, available, built directly into the system, never advertised anywhere. And the wildest part is that most of those families walked right past the exact person who could have helped them without ever saying a single word. If you go ahead and hit that like button right now, it genuinely helps me get this information in front of more people who need it before their next trip. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You have probably been to Disneyland before, maybe a few times. You think you have figured it out. You know about the app, you know about Genie Plus, you have read the blogs and the Reddit threads and the tip lists, but here's the thing. I was not a guest trying to work the system from the outside. I was the person inside it processing these requests every single shift for 8 years, watching which guests walked away with extra magic and which ones walked away with an emptier wallet and a lot of tired, disappointed kids who had no idea things could have gone differently. My name is Marcus. I spent 8 years at Disneyland. I started as a ride operator in Fantasyland, worked my way into guest relations after my 3rd year, and spent my final 2 years on the guest experience team, which is the group that most guests do not even know exists. Those are the cast members in the blue vests who walk the park floor throughout the day. We carried more discretionary power to help guests in that role than almost anyone else on property. And now that I am no longer employed there, I can tell you what current cast members genuinely cannot say out loud while they are still on the job. What I am about to share are not hacks or loopholes. They are accommodations, recovery tools, and guest experience protocols that are built directly into the system. Cast members know about them. We use them every single day. Disney does not advertise them, and they only work if you know exactly what to say and when to say it. Because the words matter. The timing matters. And the person you are talking to when you ask has more ability to help you than you probably realize. I have seen guests lose a full day of their vacation over problems that could have been fixed in 5 minutes if they had just known how to ask the right question. I have seen families pay full price for things they were entitled to receive at no additional cost simply because nobody ever told them the process existed. So here is everything I learned in 8 years that will change how confidently you navigate that park from the moment you arrive to the moment you walk out. Some of these will save you real money. Some will rescue what could have been a ruined afternoon. And a few are going to genuinely surprise you even if you have been to Disneyland 20 times. Because the guests who knew these things were not the ones who read the most blog posts. They were the ones who understood how the people inside the system were trained to help. Let's start with the one that happens before you even walk through the gate, because this is the mistake that sets the financial tone for the entire visit before a single ride is ridden. Most guests book their park tickets and then never look at them again until the day of their visit. That is a mistake that costs real money. Disney's ticketing system uses a tiered pricing structure that shifts constantly based on demand, calendar blocks, and promotional windows. If your travel dates changed even slightly after you booked, or if a promotional pricing period opened up for your same ticket tier after your original purchase date, there is a genuine chance that you overpaid. Here is what almost nobody knows. Guest relations at the front of the park has the ability to apply a price adjustment if a lower rate became available for your same ticket tier within a certain window after your original purchase. This is not in the app. It is not in the Help FAQ. It is a real internal process. When you arrive, walk directly to the guest relations window, not the general ticketing booths, not the blue tent queue where most people line up for issues. The guest relations window specifically, and say this exactly. I purchased tickets on this date and I noticed a lower rate became available for the same ticket tier shortly after. Can you check whether a price adjustment applies to my order? The answer is not always yes, but I process these adjustments dozens of times over my years there. The window is typically 30 days from your original purchase date. And in 8 years, I almost never had a guest who knew to ask. If you are finding this useful, a quick like takes 1 second, and it helps this channel reach more people before their next trip. Here is one that cost families real money over and over again when they did not know about it. And it is one where the difference between knowing and not knowing can be several $100s over the course of a multi-day visit. Disney's Disability Access Service, which most people call DAS, is widely known at this point. What is not widely known is how far it actually extends and how much human discretion shapes the registration process. I had guests come to my window who assumed that DAS was only available for guests in wheelchairs or with visible mobility challenges. It is not. The program is designed for any guest whose disability makes waiting in a conventional queue environment genuinely difficult, and that includes guests with sensory processing conditions, anxiety disorders, and a range of other invisible disabilities that do not look like anything from the outside. If that description applies to someone in your group and you have never looked into it, go to guest relations on the day of your visit. Explain your specific situation calmly and clearly, and let the cast member guide the conversation with follow-up questions. Do not arrive with a prepared condition to recite at the window. Just describe honestly what actually happens for your family member during a long wait in a crowded, loud queue environment. The process is built to help. Use it if it genuinely applies to your situation. Now here is the one that surprised even some of the most experienced repeat guests I ever dealt with at guest relations. If something goes wrong during your visit, and I mean something genuinely wrong, a major attraction breaks down while you are standing in the queue after 45 minutes of waiting. A confirmed dining reservation gets lost entirely in the system, a scheduled parade or show is canceled that you specifically built your entire day plan around. Disney has an internal service recovery system that most guests never access. Not because it is hidden exactly, but because they do not know the specific phrase that opens it. I am going to cover the dining reservation system specifically in a follow-up video because that situation alone deserves its own complete breakdown. The phrase is guest recovery. You do not say it as a demand or as a threat. The tone when you use it should sound like you are asking about a process, not asking for a favor, and not making an accusation. You walk up to any cast member or to any guest relations window and you say clearly and calmly, I want to be clear that I am not upset with anyone. I just want to understand what guest recovery options might be available given what happened today. That framing matters more than people realize. The words guest recovery are an internal system term. Cast members are trained to respond to that language in a very specific way that is different from how they respond to general complaints. I have seen that phrase unlock complimentary lightning lane selections added to a guest's app in real time, character meet and greet access outside of the standard queue system, and partial refunds applied to dining packages, all for situations that the guest originally assumed were just bad luck they had to absorb and move on from. The guests who walked away with nothing were the ones who vented to every cast member they passed without using that framing. The guests who got real help were calm, specific, and they used the right words. I watched that dynamic play out on every single shift I worked. Next. The thing almost no guest ever figures out about the Blue Vest cast members. The guest experience team walks the park floor in blue vests, and most guests treat them like animated directory signs. They are not animated directory signs. Every member of that team carries a specific toolkit that goes far beyond pointing you toward the nearest restroom. A Blue Vest cast member has the ability to add complimentary lightning lane selections directly to a guest's account through the app, on the spot, without the guest ever visiting guest relations. They can flag reservation problems, escalate dining issues to the right department immediately, And in specific circumstances, particularly for children who have had a genuinely rough experience at some point in their day. Arrange character interaction moments outside of the official scheduled meet and greet cues. The way to approach a Blue Vest cast member is not to vent frustration at them. It is to open a real conversation and give them space to ask follow-up questions. Something as simple as, "Excuse me, we had a difficult situation at one of the attractions earlier, and I was not entirely sure who the right person to speak to would be." That opening is enough. They are trained to recognize when a guest is describing a recovery situation. You are just giving them the door to walk through. I have seen Blue Vest cast members turn an afternoon around for a family in under 4 minutes, not by breaking any rules, by using the tools they were given and simply needed a reason to deploy. Here is one that costs guests money on almost every single visit without them ever realizing it. Day of pricing on Genie Plus, Lightning Lane bundles, and Park Hopper editions fluctuates based on projected attendance figures. What almost nobody knows is that on days when actual park attendance comes in below the forecast, these products are sometimes offered at adjusted pricing through the guest relations window. The park operates on utilization models. They would rather move these products at a slightly lower margin than have significant inventory go completely unused. Walk to guest relations within the first 90 minutes of your arrival and ask, "Is there any day of pricing adjustment available on the Lightning Lane packages for today?" On a slower day, that question can save you $15 to $25 per person. On a peak day, the answer is no, and it costs you 3 minutes of your morning. If any of this is already saving you time or money, go ahead and subscribe right now. I spent 8 years inside that park, and I am nowhere close to finished. Now here is one that applies to a very specific situation, but when it applies, it genuinely matters. If your child turns 3 years old during your visit, or at any point during a multi-day stay, they cross from free admission to requiring a paid child ticket. What almost no parent knows is that guest relations can apply a single-day birthday grace period on that transition date, meaning your child's last free admission day does not disappear the moment midnight arrives on their birthday. Go to guest relations on the birthday itself, not the day before, not the following morning, on the birthday, and say, "Our child turns 3 today. Can you confirm how the admission grace period works for today's visit?" I applied this accommodation many times, across 8 years. It is a real policy tool. It appears in no printed materials and no section of the Disney website. Here is something I handled more than almost anything else at the guest relations window. PhotoPass is one of the park's largest upsells, and most guests either skip it entirely or buy it at full retail price without knowing there are legitimate ways to access it at a lower cost, or in some cases, at no additional charge. First, certain multi-day ticket packages include Memory Maker by default, and it is genuinely easy to miss in the booking confirmation summary. Check your original order confirmation before you spend anywhere from $40 to $70 purchasing it separately. Second, and this is the one almost no guest ever knows about, if a PhotoPass photographer makes a significant technical error during your session, meaning blurry images, missed shots, or equipment failures that render your photos unusable, guest relations can issue a complimentary Memory Maker credit on your account. I processed these credits many times. You have to report it the same day the session occurred, and you need to be specific about what happened. If you wait until the following day, or try to flag it after you have left the park, the window is closed and the answer will be no, regardless of how legitimate the issue is. The PhotoPass photographer at this location had technical issues during our session, and most of our images are unusable. Can you check the Memory Maker credit options for that session? That is the framing that opens the process. Without that specificity, it is just a complaint, and complaints get sympathy. Specific requests using the right language get results. Now here's the thing I really want you to understand, because it is the piece that connects every single one of these together. When you walk up to any cast member anywhere in that park, They can see your full guest account, your ticket type and history, your dining reservations, your in-park spending, any prior notes left by other cast members during that same visit, and in some cases, notes from previous visits. If your account shows a day of polite, calm, specific interactions across multiple cast members, that record actively works in your favor when you need someone to exercise discretion on your behalf. If your account shows 3 different logged complaints involving aggressive or unreasonable behavior, that record works against you. Not because cast members hold personal grudges, but because discretionary help requires someone to internally advocate for you. And advocating for a guest whose own record makes the request look questionable is a much harder internal conversation to have. Before I get into this last part, if you have watched this far, and any of these have helped you, hit the subscribe button. The story I am about to tell you is the one that explains why everything else I shared today actually works. I had a father once, 2 young kids, there since rope drop. It was a genuinely difficult day for him, through no fault of his own. A major ride broke down while he was inside the queue. A confirmed dining reservation had been swallowed by a system error. A photo pass session with equipment failures. Every single interaction he had with cast members across that entire day, he was calm, patient, and never once raised his voice or made it personal. By the time he reached my window at guest relations at 3 in the afternoon, his account had 4 separate cast member notes, each one describing a guest who was polite and a situation that was clearly legitimate. I looked at that file, and I genuinely wanted to help him. I added complimentary Lightning Lane access for the remainder of his day, resolved the dining issue, and got his photo pass situation sorted. None of that was required by policy in a strict sense. All of it was made possible because his account told me clearly and without any doubt that he deserved it. That same week, I had a guest who came in aggressive from her very first interaction of the morning. By the time she reached my window, her file had 2 cast member notes flagging difficult exchanges. I helped her within standard policy. Nothing beyond that. Same park, same day, completely different outcomes based entirely on information sitting in an account the guest did not even know was being built. The system watches everything. How you treat the people working that park is part of your guest file, whether you are aware of it or not. There is one thread running through every single thing I have shared today. Disney built flexibility into the guest experience system by design. Cast members have real discretion. Recovery tools exist that never appear in any brochure or app or help document. Accommodations are available that most guests will simply never encounter because they do not know to ask. But all of it only activates when you know these things exist and when you approach the right person at the right moment with the right words. Whether it is the guest recovery phrase, the day of pricing window first thing in the morning, the birthday grace period for a child turning 3, understanding what the Blue Vest team is actually capable of, or simply knowing that your behavior all day long is being noted and followed across your entire account, every single one of these comes down to the same fundamental thing. Knowing the system well enough to ask the right question to the right person at the right time. I said at the beginning that most families leave that park having spent roughly $200 more than they needed to. You do not need to memorize everything I just shared today. Pick 2 or 3 things that are directly relevant to your next trip and start with those. Because once you understand how to move inside this system, a day at Disneyland stops feeling like something that is constantly happening to you and starts feeling like something you are genuinely in control of. In 8 years at that park, I watched thousands of families walk out of those gates at the end of the day. The ones who consistently had the best experiences were never the ones who spent the most. They were the ones who knew what to ask for, who to ask, and exactly how to frame the ask. Now you are one of those people. If this video helped you, please like it, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because the next video is going to cover something even more specific. The exact phrases that get a fully booked dining reservation recovered on the actual day of your visit. Situations that look completely closed from the outside but have a real internal process that almost no guest has ever heard of. That one is going to be worth being here for. I will see you there.